Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Sabbath. Today's sermon title is Perilous Times. Perilous times is a phrase that means dangers, difficult, or even stressful periods of time. Some say that ministry in the last days will be tough business and that only the strong will survive. I'd like to begin in Matthew 24, 1 through 8. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign that cometh in the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars, rumors of wars. See that not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Matthew 24, 1-8 describes the perilous times by foreshadowing a period of significant turmoil and distress before the end of the age, including the wars, the rumors of wars, which we are going through right now. And then the widespread unrest, what Jesus compares to the beginning of labor pains, signifying as the time of his return draws closer, essentially warning people to be prepared for the difficult times ahead. The famines that would be or are scarcity of food, natural disasters, and other catastrophic events. Then go to Mark 3. Let's see, Mark 13, excuse me. Mark 13, 1 through 9. As he went out of the temple, one of the disciples said unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here. And Jesus answering said unto him, Seest thou these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives over against the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? And Jesus answered him, began to say, Take heed, lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And when ye hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be. But the end shall not be yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginning of sorrows. But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to the councils and the synagogues. You shall be beaten, and you shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. Again, Jesus has given so far 2 warnings of what is to come. And then I go to Luke 21. (21) 5 through 12. And some people spoke of the temple, how that was adorned with goodly stones and gifts. He said, As for these things which ye behold, the days will come, in which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be? What shall be the sign? Will there be when these things shall come to pass. And he said, Take heed that ye not be deceived. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. But ye shall hear of wars and commotions. Be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then said he unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilence, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. But for these things they shall lay their hands on you, and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and to prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. Luke 21:5-12 is often interpreted as warnings about perilous times by describing signs of independent turmoil and persecution, including the wars, famines, earthquakes, and widespread tribulation, which believers will face before the end times, emphasizing the need for vigilance and faith in the midst of such challenges. With 1 Timothy 4:1-3. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times shall come depart from faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience sheared with hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanded to abstain from meats which God hath created to receive with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. 1 Timothy 4:1-3 speaks about perilous times by warning in the later days some will depart from the faith, following deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, essentially describing a period where false teachings and spiritual deception will prevail, which can be interpreted as a warning about challenging times for Christians to navigate. Now go to 2 Timothy 3:1-7. This known also that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, for such turn away. For this are they which creep into houses, and lead captive silly women laden with the sins, led away with diverse lust, even learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. 2 Timothy 3:1-7 describes perilous times as the future period characterized by widespread moral decay, where people will be self-centered, boastful, disobedient to parents, unloving, and lacking in self-control. Essentially warning that the last days will be marked by significant challenges to the Christian faith and practice. Now, for 2 Timothy 4:1-4. I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Preach the word, be instant in season, out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort, with all long suffering and doctrine. For the time will come when they will not endure such doctrine, but after their own lust they shall heap to themselves teaching having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned into fables. Timothy is describing the characteristics of people who will turn away from the truth in those perilous times, essentially highlighting the challenges of preaching the gospel when people are more interested in hearing what they want to hear rather than what they should hear. In the last days, there will become times of extreme difficulty. Now go to 2 Peter 3:3-5. knowing this first, that there shall come in last days scoffers, walking after their own lust, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of what the word of God, that the heavens of old, they're staying out of the water and into the water. 2 Peter 3:3-5 is closely related to the concept of peerless times, as it describes a period in which the last days where mockers will appear, denying the second coming of Christ, which aligns with the idea of a time with increasing difficulty and moral decline, often associated with peerless times as mentioned in 2 Timothy 3:1-5. Thank you.
Well, if you haven't seen the news lately, you're the only one that doesn't know that Europe is upset with the United States. Donald Trump has only been president for 6 weeks, and he has everybody's head spinning. And he has 198 weeks to go. The president of France called an emergency meeting with Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, the Netherlands, Denmark, UK, EU, and NATO, and others complained because they were left out. Macron said, we Europeans need a stronger and more sovereign Europe. Let's make it happen now. This is after remarks from Trump, Vance, and Hegseth about Europe, Ukraine, and NATO. Now, you would have thought after Ukraine was invaded by Russia that Europe would have come together. Instead, they have been spinning their wheels, but now with the realistic possibility of being left on their own without much help from the United States. Now they call an emergency meeting. Well, once again, prophecy may be on the march. In fact, if prophecy had a doomsday clock, I would say that we just moved 1 minute closer to midnight. Now we know the Bible tells us at the time of the end there will be 10 kings that arise out of the old Roman Empire. Now whether they are kings or leaders or rulers or presidents, the Bible calls them kings. So I'm going to begin today in Daniel chapter 2 as we're going to look into these 10 kings. Daniel 2 and begin in verse 31 as he starts to, if you know, remember the story that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, but he couldn't remember the dream. And so he told all of his wise men, you need to tell me what my dream was. They said, no, you tell us the dream and we'll tell you what it means. He says, no, anybody can do that. You tell me what the dream was or you're all going to die. So Daniel and his 3 friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, they went and they prayed and God revealed it to Daniel. So in verse 31 he says, you, O king, were watching and behold a great image whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image head was of fine gold, its arms, chest of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold were all crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. So he didn't take it just to himself. He included his 3 friends in the interpretation too. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, or the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and the toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, now you have to stop for a second and say, well, kings, I thought we was talking about toes. But he says, in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. So he basically tells us in the interpretation that the 10 toes represent 10 kings. So, with all that in mind, we're going to go over to Daniel chapter 7. Now the toes, you have to think now, if you picture the image, the toes are on 2 feet. You get 5 on each foot. So will the 10 kings be divided between Eastern and Western Europe? We read that they will be divided. They will not adhere to one another. So you can probably assume they will not agree on everything as it comes about. And in the days of these 10 toes, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom. Now in chapter 7, in verse 1, he says that he had this dream, and he wrote down the dream telling the main facts. So he didn't leave out, he left out all the little details. He just told the main facts. And that's what we're going to read, the main facts. Verse 16. I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. So there's no reason to guess and try and say, what does this mean, or what does that mean, or what does this represent? He's going to tell us. And of course, it was basically the same dream, but instead of the image, there was 4 beasts. Verse 17, these great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I wish to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet. And the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, before which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth, which spoke pompous words against whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. So once again, we have the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, and the Roman Empire, and now a revival of the Roman Empire, because the 10 kings arise from this empire at the end time. So he says the 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a times and times and half a time. Now, I'm not sure what the changing of the times and the law would be, but it sure would fit if it was the Sabbath and holy days, because that is the law. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but they are in the process of changing the calendar. I've seen 2 calendars now where Sunday is the 7th day. So, and it's not just a matter of fact, if you go to online to order a pizza from Domino's online, and you click on the calendar, Sunday is the 7th day. And I just bought a calendar for Johnny for his room because he likes little puppies. So he's got a puppy calendar. And I just looked at it when I turned the page because his birthday is today on the 1st of March. And I went to, what's the Saturday doing on the 2nd? I had a look at it, and they had it, Saturday was the 6th day and Sunday was the 7th day. So they're already in the process of doing these things. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's one of the things that happens, because it's right after that. He changes the law, the Sabbath and the holy days, and what happens next? He persecutes the saints for 3.5 years. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdoms, the dominion, and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. So we have the little horn, the beast, will rise after the 10, and then that takes us up to the return of Christ, just like we read in chapter 2. So now we'll head over to chapter 9. And if you know chapter 9, the angel comes to give Daniel a prophecy. In verse 24, he says, 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city. Now, we know 70 weeks is 490 years. He says, for your people and your holy city. Verse 25, know therefore and understand from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem. Not the temple, but Jerusalem. There shall be, until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. So we're talking about 69 weeks. Verse 26, and after the 62 weeks, and the 7 weeks, which is 69 weeks. So after the 69 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. So it's after 69 weeks, not 69 and a half. Then the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Verse 27, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. So some kind of covenant or treaty will be made by the beast for the 70th week, that last 7 years. But in the middle of the week, he intends to change times and laws, bringing an end to sacrifices. And yeah, it might be at this time, because all these things are in the news now, it might be at this time, at the beginning of this last week, that the temple construction begins with sacrifices as part of a groundbreaking ceremony. Daryl had sent me some information that where they are contemplating sacrificing the red heifer in April, which seems to be soon. Now, if, on the other hand, they were to follow the Ezra model, they would do so on trumpets, which gives us about 8 or 9 months before then. I could see that happening. So that will bring us up to then Daniel 11. Daniel 11 and verse 40 says, at the time of the end. So again, once again, this brings us to the end time. Verse 41, He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. And of course, we're talking about the beast. He shall stretch out his hand against the countries of the land of Egypt, shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. And he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. And this brings us to the Great Tribulation, which is the last 3.5 years. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Verse 6, and one said to the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished. Although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white, refined, and the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So once again, when the daily sacrifice is taken away, we have 3.5 years plus a month. Now, just a thought, that month could be the time of the war between the beast and the two witnesses. So we'll go over to Matthew now, Matthew 24. We work our way through this. Matthew 24 and verse 15. He says, therefore, when you see, which means when you perceive, when you understand what you're seeing is the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, then happens verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be. So when we see these things happening, then we know. And Jesus tells us, when you see these things begin to happen, then lift up your heads, because your redemption draws nigh. So now we're going to go over to 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians in chapter 2, verse 1. Says, now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, which is the last trump during the day of the Lord, we ask you not to be soon shaken in mind or troubled, either by spirit or by word or by letter, as if from us, as though the day of Christ had come. Now, you would think if they read all the different prophecies in the Old Testament, they would know it hadn't happened yet, because all the things hadn't taken place. He says, let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, and that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So as we just read back in Daniel, the beast goes to Jerusalem with his army, goes into the temple, defiling the temple, and thus causing the sacrifices to cease, becoming the abomination of desolation. Now we go over to Revelation chapter 5. Chapter 5 and verse 1. And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?" And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scrolls or to look at it. So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals." And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent out into all the earth. Then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And then, of course, this big ceremony that follows. Now, as a reminder, Jesus said, "No one knows the day or the hour except the Father only." And he told his disciples on Ascension Day, "It is not for you to know the times or seasons which the Father has put in his own authority." So all of these end-time events are on this scroll, which is in the Father's hands, until he holds out his hand to Jesus and Jesus takes the scroll. No one knows when he will do that. People are always guessing dates and trying to come down and figure this and figure that. Who knows the mind of God? The scroll is in his hand. It's in his authority. And Jesus said, "I don't know when he's going to give it to me." The 70th week of Daniel does not begin until Jesus opens the first seal. Revelation 6 says in verse 1, "Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a loud voice like thunder, 'Come and see.' And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer." The beast begins to rise, as we read back in Daniel 11. So now we go over to Revelation 13. Revelation 13 and verse 4 says, "So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?' And he was given a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue 42 months. So here's our 3.5 years again. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven." So we just read that back in 2 Thessalonians. He blasphemes God because he sits in the temple of God, proclaiming to be God, and this says he blasphemes his name, so it wouldn't surprise me if he even took God's name to himself and said, "I am," whether he wants to say, "I am Jesus" or "I am Yahweh," either way, he's going to take God's name and proclaim to be God. And it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. So, once again, the 3.5 years, blaspheming, claiming to be God, war with the saints. And remember, we're watching for the 10 kings to appear first. But once they do, all these things are going to happen. Chapter 13 and verse 11 says, "Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon." So now we have a religious-looking beast, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. So he gets the authority of the first beast in his presence. Now, to me, that means I'm going to give you the power to deceive all these people to worship me, but only in my presence, because I don't trust you out of my sight. And he causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So, again, he uses the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes everyone to worship himself? No, the first beast. So here we have the false prophet who deceives everyone by the power he got from the beast, who got his power from the dragon. And remember, the false prophet is the false prophet of the false god. So now we're going to go over to chapter 17. Chapter 17 and verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, Come, and I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So we have a woman sitting on a beast. But wait, let's jump ahead and see who this woman is. Verse 18. And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. So the woman is a city. Now we have an empire and a city portrayed as a woman and a beast. So verse 4. The woman, or the city, was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And on her head was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So, there's the city's name, Babylon. I saw the woman, or the city, drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. But the angel said to me, Why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. So the beast is a wild beast. She does not control the beast. The beast does what it wants to, and the woman is carried along for the ride. Verse 12, the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. So here again we have the 10 horns that become 10 kings. And they give their power to the beast for 1 hour. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. So you have these 10 kings. But remember back in Daniel it says that the beast comes up and he subdues 3 kings. So apparently they're replaced, because here we are at the very end, and there's 10 once again. So it says they're going to give their power and authority to the beast, which means they're going to put their differences aside for a short time and agree to do whatever they need to do. So here we have them, the same 10 horns, and they're making war with Christ as he returns. And they lose, because Christ sets up his kingdom and puts down all the others, as we already read back in Daniel. Verse 16 then says, the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, make her desolate, naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. So the 10 kings eventually hate the woman, the city, which most recognize as Rome, who adopted the Babylonian religion, but more specifically, Vatican City, that will be the home of the false prophet. Now, people should pay attention, as the office of the Pope will be taken over by the false prophet at some time in the near future. What we see today in Europe is Europe in an uproar, with nations in Europe forming new alliances, believing they can't count on the United States. Who will emerge as the strong ones? The 10 kings of the new empire, and another emerge after them to receive Satan's power. And then a pope who is willing to become his false prophet to deceive the world to worship the beast who will claim to be God. Putting all these scriptures together, we have an understanding as to what will occur and in what order. So before the Father hands the scroll to Christ, these things need to be in place. There needs to be a kingdom with 10 kings ready to stand up and another ready to become the beast, who will make a treaty with Judah, Daniel's people. When we look at Europe right now, it's never been more of a possibility. They're all in disarray. They're all trying to figure out what to do, who's going to do what, who can we count on, who can't we count on. So when this is in place, Jesus will open the first seal, and it will all begin, the last 7 years. The sacrifices, the temple, the 2 witnesses, the wars, the abomination of desolation, the great tribulation, the heavenly signs, and the day of the Lord. Everything written in Revelation. The question is, how soon? Well, it could be right before our eyes. You saw what happened yesterday at the White House. The president kicked the little dictator out, and the whole world was watching. They don't know what to make of what is going on. It's a shame, believe it or not, but that the Postal Service is so bad that it takes 2 weeks to get these sermons posted. But I guess, as the saying goes, it's better late than never. But it used to be like 4 days, and now it literally is 2 weeks. So that's just, I wish there was a way that we could, 1, 2, 3, get it up there same day or a day later or something, but I don't know how we can make that happen. So, but we're looking for 10 kings. The kingdom is there. We know it's going to be Europe. It's just a matter of which nations are going to be the leaders to form these 10 kings. So keep watching. If things keep speeding up the way that they have been, we may have only 8 years before the last Trump.